The following is a presentation of the Pro Wrestling Report. Informative, entertaining, and real since 1998.
Coming up next, ladies and gentlemen, on the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time, we've got an exclusive interview with Mr. Wonderful, Paul Orndorff. Also, a look back at this past Sunday's TNA Against All Odds, WWE Raw, and last night's SmackDown. David Hero's Star of the Week, Counterpoint. More free WWE Elimination Chamber tickets and the history book looking back at WWE St. Valentine's Day Massacre. All that and more coming up right here, right now on the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time.
This is the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime TV, the longest-running pro wrestling news program in the world, with your hosts David Hero and Damian Nelson.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime Television. Damian Nelson sitting alongside David Hero, and it is Saturday, February the 18th, 2012. We are on the eve of WWE Elimination Chamber coming to Milwaukee's Bradley Center tomorrow night. It's going to be an interesting event for sure, especially after what we saw on SmackDown last night.
It's going to be a huge event. The whole chamber's been shaken up. Randy Orton.
It's time to shake things up again.
And you did. You did a great job with that. I don't know how you got one.
I'm not Teddy Long.
You got one of my super friends out of a big main event.
Well, he can't stay healthy. Let's talk about World Wrestling Entertainment in this week's WWE Report. And let's start with WWE Raw from this past Monday night. And I guess it was shades of the Pro Wrestling Report from last week, David Hero. The question is, a debate, anyone? How funny was that opening segment on Raw, and how funny was R-Truth, who is now becoming a standout star in World Wrestling Entertainment?
R-Truth finally given the opportunity to be R-Truth. One of the more over baby faces in the entire company right now. I mean, who would have thought R-Truth, Ron Killings, the guy that wrestled John Cena.
What's up?
What was that, 7 months ago? Everyone groaned when he was in the main event. Now are cheering for him and Little Jimmy.
And they did, and there are many people, though, who question the ultimate effectiveness of that particular debate as it pertains to pushing the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, which is tomorrow. Because obviously the go-home edition of Raw is there for what? To sell pay-per-view events, and it seemed as if the focus was only on John Cena and Kane.
Well, that's how they ended the show, but I mean, the first 15, 20 minutes was dedicated to all 6 combatants in the chamber on the Raw brand, but I don't know if the debate did what they needed to do to get people invested. I mean, if anything, it showed the different personalities why each guy deserves to be in there. But it's going to come down to the matches, to the work rate of all 6 guys.
I'm just happy they didn't get that Mike Wickett guy to moderate the debate. Jerry Lawler did a much better job. He's biased. He is biased. He was biased completely. He was unfair and unbalanced in his moderation of that debate last week, and you know it.
Mike Wickett does nothing in moderation. You should know that.
The Undertaker, Triple H, and Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels on Raw this past Monday night. He had some very pointed words for Triple H in regards to his decision to not accept the challenge of the match at WrestleMania from The Undertaker. This got very heated, very emotional, and very, very personal between these two.
Who would have thought Shawn Michaels would be the antagonist? The guy that's trying to prod and push Triple H.
He's been there, done that.
Right, but I mean, that's not how he left. He left as the ultimate good guy, the babyface. And why is he trying to get his best friend on the planet upset to fight a guy that's already beaten him twice at WrestleMania? It just didn't make sense. I mean, I know they're trying to bring more drama and intrigue, and, you know, those 3 guys can do an amazing job on TV. I mean, Shawn Michaels and Triple H, they had obviously creative freedom in that promo, which made it so compelling and so good. But I'm just not buying it that Shawn Michaels has to convince Hunter Hearst Helmsley to face The Undertaker one more time.
Bringing up Stephanie McMahon, asking Triple H if he's gone corporate, if he has become one of them, if you will, and then Triple H saying, in regards to him and Shawn Michaels, we are the end of an era. Even pointing to the audience, pointing around the arena, saying one day, as much as you may not like it, this will all be mine. Those words coming out of the mouth of Triple H, a profound statement for sure.
He meant it. He meant every single word of it. Yes, the end of the era, the Attitude Era, the best era in all of wrestling is coming to a close. Because really, there's only a couple guys left. Kane, Triple H, Undertaker. Are really the only three active guys left from that, and Jericho are active left. And you know what? It's time for those guys to move on and become special attractions, the same way Austin is, the same way Rock has become. It's a sad day in wrestling. This year's WrestleMania will be the end of the Attitude Era.
Zack Ryder gets killed again. Oh my God, they killed Kenny as he is shoved off the stage in his wheelchair by Kane. Kane promising someone was going to be going to the hospital in an ambulance, and that would be Zack Ryder after John Cena smacked Eve on the face with a kiss.
I don't understand what has happened to Zack Ryder, the once bright star, the supernova of Monday Night Raw.
Supernova's been gone for a while.
But I mean, everyone loved the guy. He was everyone's favorite.
Now they barely talk about him.
And now he's getting just handed to him week in and week out. Now his girl leaves him for John Cena. Wow, what happened to his career?
As we alluded to earlier, just last night on SmackDown, Randy Orton announced to have suffered a concussion and will be out of the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view tomorrow night. Replacing him is the winner of the Battle Royal, Santino Marella. And this a man, Santino, who was one of the final two people in last year's Royal Rumble, now gets an opportunity at the Elimination Chamber to take the championship off of Daniel Bryan.
Does it just show how impressed they are with Santino's ability to always be relevant on either show, how the crowd's behind him, or is this an example of how poor the depth is on the SmackDown brand?
I think it's an example of both, actually, and you wonder why maybe they didn't throw Drew McIntyre in there. Maybe that question answers itself.
Or Brodus Clay. Where's Brodus?
Well, since you picked him up as part of your Mighty Mouse Club, he has been buried.
Somebody better call his mama.
Speaking of calling, a lot of fans were called out to the Bradley Center this past Sunday for Body Slams on Ice, David Hero, and an amazing crowd turning out to see legends who were here in Milwaukee, including Mick Foley, Paul Bearer, Molly Holly, and Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. It was a great event in conjunction with the Milwaukee Admirals game, another event brought to you here in Milwaukee. You know, I'm not sure there's a better place to be a wrestling fan than right here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, especially since we are going to also be having a pre-Elimination Chamber party tomorrow in downtown Milwaukee. More information on that later.
That's going to be a huge party. I don't know how you keep pulling off all these different shenanigan parties.
I'm a busy man. And Linda actually does all the work. She does all the pre-work on.
She does all the hump work?
She gets it all set up. Yes, she does.
Fantastic.
And that is this week's WWE news. And still to come here on the Pro Wrestling Report, we've got that exclusive interview with Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. We're going to take a look back at a pay-per-view from TNA this past Sunday night, Against All Odds.
You watched it?
David Hero, you've got Star of the Week. Counterpoint this week, which will be interesting for sure. More free WWE Elimination Chamber tickets and the history book, looking back at WWE's St. Valentine's Day Massacre in 1999. The Pro Wrestling Report continues right here on My 24 Milwaukee, right after this. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report here on My 24 Milwaukee. Damian Nelson sitting alongside David Octavius Tiberius, the alleged backyard one-time Hall of Fame Divas Knockouts champion Hero. You have it in your contract. You're supposed to get all these accolades. I hate saying it every week.
Yeah, but you can just say Hall of Famer.
But you're not. I still haven't seen the birth certificate.
I don't need a birth certificate. I'm not a president.
We are giving away tickets to WWE Elimination Chamber, which is live tomorrow night on pay-per-view from Milwaukee's Bradley Center. Tickets are going very, very fast for that event. So PWR's got your hookup, and let's go ahead and go to last week's question, which was, where was the first ever Taboo Tuesday event? And we've got a winner, ladies and gentlemen.
You know, you need to clarify that. WWE Taboo Tuesday event.
Thank you for that clarification. Congratulations go out to a viewer in Franksville, Wisconsin, Ray Rorick. Ray Rorick, you are the winner of a pack of tickets to WWE's Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, which is tomorrow night. You've received the email earlier in the week, and you're hopefully able to pick up those tickets.
And hopefully you'll be at Karma for the party.
My 24, and indeed we will be giving away ringside seats. Yes, we've got 2 sets of fourth row seats to the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. Nobody else is giving you that. You can get it right here with the Pro Wrestling Report Sunday afternoon starting at 4 o'clock p.m. at Karma Bar and Grill. That's going to be at 600 East Ogden as the Pro Wrestling Report hosts the pre-party
so we have
for WWE Elimination Chamber.
4 front row seats in the 4th row at 4 o'clock at Karma. So 12,
4, 4, 4.
So 12 is the magic number.
Well, for what? Is that the combination?
Yes.
Interesting. Congratulations go out to Ray and to all of our winners, and we'll see the rest of you Sunday at Karma where you can win those ringside seats. David Harrell, now let's go to a special feature here on the Pro Wrestling Report. An opportunity I had this past weekend to sit down with the WWE Hall of Famer, Paul Orndorff, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. And Mr. Wonderful has wonderfully defeated a recent bout with cancer. So while speaking was difficult for him at times in this interview, he still comes through crystal clear. And it's important we make that point. And really well wishes go out to Paul Orndorff, who just 7 months ago was diagnosed with cancer and is now completely eradicated from his body as he recovers. But without further ado, let's go to Paul Orndorff, Mr. Wonderful, talking about the beginning and his time in WWE.
The following is a special presentation from the Pro Wrestling Report.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Damian Nelson here, the Pro Wrestling Report, sitting next to a legend in professional wrestling. You know him as Mr. Wonderful, Paul Orndorff. Paul Orndorff, welcome here to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and the Pro Wrestling Report here on My 24. A Hall of Fame wrestling legend, a man who helped build the brand that is WrestleMania. But you spent many times here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin as well. The first thing that comes to your mind when you think of Milwaukee is what?
Beer.
And the second thing would be bratwurst, right?
Bratwurst, there you go. I'm going to have a little of both tonight. I've been waiting for it.
Excellent. You've been involved in so many great stories in professional wrestling, obviously with the likes of Hulk Hogan and many others. What do you think is it that really defines your legendary career? If you had to think back to those 3 or 4 moments in professional wrestling that made Mr. Wonderful synonymous with wrestling and top of mind with all the fans out there, what would you say they were?
I think it had to do a lot with my desire and worked hard. I was told that by the old timer, you know, that you go out there and those people work hard for their money. They work by the hour. They work hard, and you give them your money's worth. And I tried to take that to another level and give them more than what they, would expect. And just to blow the top off the roof. And I wanted to make a name for myself. So I went out there and I busted my butt. I stayed in the gym. I'm an athlete. I played pro ball and 2-time Hall of Famer now. And it paid off. And I just believe in hard work. You know how it was always pounded in our heads. And when it really comes down to it, it is hard work is what gets you where you're at. If you work hard and you really want to.
And one criticism that's been levied on a lot of stars of today in professional wrestling, and there's no doubt the business has changed substantially from not even 10 years ago, but 15, 20, 30 years ago. The business has changed, and it is much more of a business now, but arguably the wrestling business is not as big as it was when you were involved in it. What do you attribute that to? Today's stars, they definitely come from a different mold with the territories not being around as much as they were in the past, so a lot of stars are seemingly created as opposed to the athletes that you are.
Well, and you pretty much said everything. You can still be an athlete, and you can't just blame it on that.
Right.
You got to blame it on because there's nowhere to go. These guys don't have nowhere to go work. I work 7 days a week, 350 days a year.
Right.
And I've done that for 20 plus years. And there's nowhere to go. But then again, with the whole attitude of wrestling now and where it is, it's not the same. They really don't put the effort, to me, the effort and the psychology there's in it. There's psychology in it. See, we're part psychologists too.
Right.
Because, you know, my job was to go out and make you hate my guts. Well, you just can't go out there and spit on a guy and something you think they're going to hate your gut.
Yeah.
I didn't do it that way. I worked my butt off, and I wrestled, and I out-wrestled the guy that I was with, no matter who he was.
Yep.
So I made them hate me that way, which made me, my career, the longevity of it was much longer because I wasn't just a flip in the night.
Right. Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, another legend appearing right here on the Pro Wrestling Report. And he had some interesting things to say. Next week, David Hero, Paul Orndorff is going to talk to us more about where his WWE Hall of Fame ring is and how he felt about his induction into the WWE Hall of Fame, along with more about the current state of professional wrestling. That's next week, right here on the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time. But for right now, it's time to find out who this week's star of the week is. Take it away, David Hero.
This week's star of the week, it's an easy choice. It's super simple. It's the one and only the Milan Miracle, Santino Marella. Yes, he was the runner-up in last year's Royal Rumble, and this year he gets the opportunity to become the WWE World Champion by defeating Big Show, Great Khali, Cody Rhodes, Wade Barrett, and Daniel Bryan Danielson. How can the fans not cheer for this week's star of the week, the Milan Miracle, Santino Marella?
Gee, I sort of figured he would do that. And by the way, he won't be beating Cody Rhodes.
Cody Rhodes will beat himself.
Sorry? The tag team battles in Ring of Honor continue, David Hero, as it was a singles match. Mark Briscoe, one half of the Briscoe brothers, taking on Charlie Haas. Shelton Benjamin suspended.
Suspended.
He hasn't paid that $5,000 fine yet.
Suspended to Singapore or the Philippines.
Philippines, yes.
Yes. What's up with the Philippines lately? You know, my goodness. Hacking in the PWR show Facebook account. I mean, come on, really? I bet it was Shelton Benjamin.
Eddie Edwards and Adam Cole defeating Matt Taven and Mike Mondo, and Mondo attacking Taven afterwards. A good episode of Ring of Honor television this week. And again, the product continues to look better and better. And we've gotten a lot of feedback from a lot of our viewers here in the Milwaukee area about how Ring of Honor is really the only wrestling they watch each and every week, simply because that's all that's available to them, maybe not having cable.
Well, Ring of Honor Wrestling, you gotta give lots of props to Jim Cornette. I mean, the tag team division is strong. Why? Who knows tag team wrestling better than Jim Cornette? The Midnight Express. And he's using the 1980s slow build. Look at Kevin Steen, how well he's evolved. He's become a big heel, a big star. Once again, old school theory goes a long way.
That's this week's Ring of Honor report, and still to come here on the Pro Wrestling Report, a look back at this past Sunday's TNA Against All Odds on pay-per-view, along with a huge, major shakeup in the creative ranks of TNA wrestling. We'll talk about that with the details, and Counterpoint, where we look at whether or not Chris Jericho should win the WWE Elimination Chamber matchup on the Raw side of things, and also the history book, looking back at WWE St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Pro Wrestling Report continues right here on My 24 Milwaukee. Welcome back to the Pro Wrestling Report here on My 24 in Milwaukee. This is Damian Nelson sitting alongside David Hero. And it's time to go to Counterpoint, ladies and gentlemen. And this week
I'm going to start, because I keep getting screwed on time every week.
Fine, if you must. How about I share everybody what the subject is?
What is it? I don't know. It's not on the run sheet. What is the subject?
We said it before the break. Now we'll reset it after the break.
I wasn't paying attention.
Should Chris Jericho walk out of WWE's Elimination Chamber pay-per-view tomorrow night at the Bradley Center in Milwaukee as the new WWE champion? David, I'd love to hear your point.
Oh, you'll hear it. Once again, it's my time. 30 seconds. Without a doubt, Chris Jericho needs to leave Milwaukee the WWE Raw brand champion. Why? Because CM Punk has been on cruise control since he beat Alberto Del Rio to win the championship. ADR, you know, rich, handsome, powerful, but you already knew that. They need to do a little reset because they need Punk to chase Jericho. Right now, Jericho is getting the accolades, the good guy heat, the bad guy heat, Punk has kind of got a little stale lately. They need to refreshen his character, and the only way they can do that is
Thank
by
God, that seemed like forever.
having Jericho beat Punk.
I believe it's my turn, ladies and gentlemen.
See, you may have complained about Wicket last week, but obviously you have your own Wicket.
You ever heard the term control what you can control?
It's called creative
You'll never
control.
see Mike Wicket on this program again. I guarantee you.
Rude.
Counterpoint, ladies and gentlemen, absolutely not. Chris Jericho should not walk out the champion. CM Punk is white hot as champion. Why wouldn't you keep the championship belt on him going into WrestleMania, where clearly it's going to be Jericho versus CM Punk for the title? I'm not sure it matters who has it, but from this fan's standpoint, CM Punk needs to retain that championship going into Miami, Florida at WrestleMania, and Jericho needs to be the one chasing it because Jericho has something to prove to the fans. It's that since he's been back, CM Punk does not.
You went like 7 seconds over.
2, but I can do that because I can. That's this week's Point Counterpoint, ladies and gentlemen. We always want to hear your feedback and your thoughts on our Point Counterpoints. Be free to go to our website, pwrshow.com, to submit your feedback. Let's talk now about TNA, David Hero. Last Sunday, TNA presented Against All Odds on pay-per-view, where Bobby Roode retained the TNA World Heavyweight Championship in a 4-way matchup after Sting inadvertently hits Jeff Hardy, causing Bobby Roode to win that matchup. The story of Bobby Roode being the cowardly champion continues on Impact.
It continues. It's like watching Daniel Bryan Danielson on SmackDown. Always finds a way to leave with the belt. Both guys, great wrestlers, great champions, but they're not being able to showcase because, let's face it, a good wrestling bad guy doesn't sell tickets. You want to hate the guy. You want to have someone chase him. Can someone please explain to me what Sting was even doing at ringside? Let me just say this. TNA Wrestling, obviously the big shakeup, it all started at the pay-per-view.
It did, and we'll talk more about that in a minute, but also at the pay-per-view, a sad situation as Jesse Sorensen suffered an injury, a severe injury in his matchup with Zema Ion. Jesse Sorensen
broke his C1.
Broke his C1 vertebrae, actually fractured that vertebrae, and is also suffering from spinal cord edema. As we heard from Al Snow on this past Monday's Monday Night Meltdown radio show.
Was that a song by... what was that guy's name?
No. As we heard from Al Snow, this could be a life-threatening injury, and we want to thank Al for that update. An update followed up by TNA President Dixie Carter. Jesse Sorensen is recovering, regaining feeling, and it is not.
Does he get back in the ring again? Does he take that chance?
We're hearing up to a year, but as a young man just entering the business, does he take that chance?
Get out. It's not, believe me. How many guys do we know that are still, I mean, Mick Foley takes him 45 minutes to go to bed every morning.
Brand new tag team champions this past Sunday night at TNA Against All Odds as Crimson and Matt Morgan lose the titles to Samoa Joe and Magnus. Brand new tag team champions.
Thank God. As much as I like Matt Morgan, I know you've endorsed Crimson. They needed Joe and Magnus, or Hugh Jackman, to become the tag team champions. 2 different personalities.
Hugh Jackman?
Yeah, he looks like
I've
Wolverine.
never seen him on a zip line.
It would be, those 2 different personalities and characters, I think, is exactly what TNA's tag team division needs. Spice it up a little bit. You can't have 2 7-foot giants beat everybody. Now you're going to get a good wrestling tag team, and let's hope they can build some new tag teams to have some good matches with those 2 guys.
As we said, a huge shakeup in TNA Wrestling. It began on Sunday. The head writer, the head storyteller, if you will, as it pertains to what translates to what you see on TV, is gone. Vince Russo, who many of you know from his time in WCW and WWE, has been fired, released, let go.
Future endeavored.
From TNA Impact Wrestling, and replacing him, as the entire structure has changed quite a bit. So it's not necessarily a direct replacement, but you got the combination of Bruce Pritchard, Eric Bischoff, and Dave Lagana, who was brought in to TNA Wrestling to work on the Ring King Ka project, is now going to be taking a more active role as creative director for TNA Wrestling overall. David Hero, this could have some substantial ramifications on TNA. We're going to talk about this story in 5 more minutes, our online extension of the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime that you can see at our website, pwrshow.com, immediately following this episode right there at pwrshow.com. Vince Russo gone from TNA Wrestling, and this could be very interesting because, as you said, David Hero, it's the only thing they haven't done. That's this week's TNA Report, and it's time now to go back into the history book. As we look back into the annals of time, we're going to go back to 1999. As we celebrated Valentine's Day earlier this week, It was St.
I
Valentine's
didn't
Day.
celebrate it. You might have.
I was booked all day long. It
Hourly?
was the St. Valentine's Day Massacre on Valentine's Day in 1999. The main event, David Hero, saw Vincent Kennedy McMahon versus Stone Cold in a steel cage matchup. And remember what happened in that cage match? Two very substantial things. McMahon taking that bump off the top of the cage down onto the broadcast announce table where you could almost see his spine split in half when he hit the edge of that table. Then the table collapsed. There was about a millisecond delay there, which made it that much more substantial. And the big debut, making his first appearance in World Wrestling Entertainment, Paul White, the Big Show, coming up through the bottom of the ring to thwart the efforts of Stone Cold Steve Austin.
That was the time when guys were going back and forth from Raw to Nitro, Nitro to Raw, and Thunder and SmackDown.
Jericho would come over later that year.
Big Show was a big addition, and they called them the Big Show, TBS, as a rib on Turner Broadcasting Systems.
Big Show could walk out the new World Heavyweight Champion tomorrow night at the Elimination Chamber here in Milwaukee at the Bradley Center. And before the Elimination Chamber tomorrow night at the Bradley Center, you've got your last chance to win free tickets to the pay-per-view. Fourth row, 4 p.m. We've got 2 packs of 2 tickets, making a total of 4 tickets. Available tomorrow at Karma starting at 4 o'clock. 600 East Ogden. The Pro Wrestling Report broadcast team is going to be there. You can be there too to win those tickets and just celebrate and have some great food and some great fun right before the pay-per-view, which occurs from the Bradley Center. We'll have the post-show right after the pay-per-view from the Bradley Center as well.
In the luxury box?
So be sure to tune in.
Suite?
Yes, indeed. We'll be broadcasting live from the Bradley Center, so be sure to tune in. You can hear that online at pwrshow.com. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's edition of the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time. For that one, this is Damian Nelson saying thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you at the Elimination Chamber and then on the post show.